You're standing on a frozen horizon where silence stretches farther than sight, and the air feels sharp yet calm. The Arctic seems empty, but life here is written in quiet survival. How does a polar bear endure months of hunger on drifting ice? Why do narwhals carry a spiral tusk like a unicorn of the sea? And what secrets let tiny fish keep their blood from freezing solid? Welcome to Nature Nap. I'm John, a lifelong lover of the quiet wild. Maybe you are too. Here we explore the wonders of nature and animals as you drift to sleep. Tonight, we'll journey through the Arctic, meeting creatures shaped by ice, by darkness, and by the quiet rhythm of survival at the edge of the world. Close your eyes. Let the cold become calm. From the shifting crust of sea ice to the silent algae living beneath it, the story of Arctic wildlife always begins here. Sea ice is not only frozen water, but a living stage, a foundation on which lives unfold with a patience almost beyond our sense of time. Imagine the surface stretching far beyond sight, cracked in pale blues, glowing in the low light of the Arctic sun. This ice is never still, always drifting, breaking, reforming, yet it is the platform that supports the creatures of the far north. Each winter, the ice doubles its reach. As darkness extends, frozen sheets expand over the sea, remaking hunting grounds for polar bears, for foxes, for the creatures that follow in their wake. These surfaces are not obstacles but lifelines. When spring returns and the ice retreats, the range of movement shrinks again. This slow breathing in and out of the frozen ocean sets the rhythm for countless migrations. Beneath the quiet crust, the cycle of freezing and thawing determines survival. The ice does more than spread and retreat. Its edges form ridges, pressure-built folds that rise like miniature mountain ranges, sculpted by winds and currents. These ridges break the gales that sweep across the Arctic, offering small pockets of shelter. Tiny birds may pause in their lee, and even seals benefit from calmer air near the ridges. What looks like lifeless heaps of ice turns out to be shaped refuge, an architecture of chance, saving energy in a place where every heartbeat must be measured. Even the cracks are important. Leads, those sudden openings in the ice, appear as dark rivers cutting across the pale surface. They seem fragile, almost like mistakes in the frozen order, but they are invitations. Seals emerge through them to breathe. Narwhals and belugas time their surfacing to these narrow lanes. A bowhead whale, immense and ancient, may nudge the edge to keep it open. These leads form meeting places, busy with unseen motion, while from above, only a thin strip of open water marks the gathering. Beneath the ice, life begins in stillness. Thin layers of ice algae bloom before the sun even climbs high, painting the underside with green-brown films. Microscopic, yes, but carrying the future of the season's food web. When the melt begins, fragments drift down like quiet snow, feeding zooplankton that in turn fuel fish, seals, and whales. The bloom is silent, invisible to eyes on the surface, yet it is the first spark of spring in the frozen desert. Without it, the chain would falter before it even starts. And the ice itself drifts, not fixed but flowing. Entire flows shift with currents, carrying with them the animals that rely on their stability. A polar bear may sleep on one, only to wake hundreds of kilometers away. Seals rest on flows that slide slowly across basins. The drift redraws boundaries constantly, reshaping where animals can travel, where they can hunt, where they must wait. It is a restless floor to an already harsh world. Imagine lying on that ice, hearing only wind and the creak of frozen sheets pressing against one another. It is the opposite of rush, a pace where change comes in the measure of seasons, not seconds. And yet each fact of this shifting stage decides the survival of entire species. For us, it is scenery. For them, it is destiny. The sea ice teaches a lesson in fragility and resilience combined. Nothing about it is permanent. It melts, reforms, drifts, yet its impermanence sustains entire lifetimes. The creatures of the Arctic are born into its rhythm, not fighting it, but adapting to its slow pulse. For the bowhead whale, 2 centuries pass in harmony with the rise and fall of flows. For the fox, each season brings a new test of survival, shaped by the reach of frozen seas. As you let your breath settle, think of that stage, the whiteness stretching outward, the cracks opening, the algae stirring in dim light. All of Arctic life, from the tiniest copod to the immense bear, depends on this platform of silence. Sea ice is not just frozen water, it is time itself, spread thin across the ocean. Quiet question. If survival rests on something so fragile and shifting, what does that say about the ground beneath our own lives? The vast whiteness of the Arctic looks empty at first, but somewhere across the drifting floes, a polar bear walks with deliberate calm. Its steps are slow, weight spread wide, as if it knows every patch of ice has its own mind. These bears are the quiet monarchs of the north, rulers not through speed or fury, but through patience, endurance, and a body adapted to silence. To see one from afar is to see power at rest, and to imagine one up close is to feel the quiet mystery of survival, where life should barely exist. Their fur seems white, yet it is not truly so. Each hair is hollow, translucent, trapping air and scattering light like frozen glass. This structure does more than create the illusion of whiteness. It insulates with remarkable efficiency, wrapping the bear in a layer of captured warmth. Snow gathers on its back, without melting because so little heat escapes. Beneath the fur lies black skin, absorbing the weak rays of sun that touch the ice. It is a lesson in contrasts. Darkness hidden under white, warmth pulled from light that feels too faint to matter, and still, it matters enough to keep life going. The bear's paws spread wide, broad enough to support its great weight without cracking thin ice. On each pad, tiny papillae act like sandpaper, gripping surfaces slick with frost. When the bear swims, those same paws paddle with ease, pushing the heavy body through frigid water. You can almost picture the rhythm, each stroke slow, steady, designed to conserve strength, because in the Arctic, every heartbeat and every movement must be weighed against the cold. The bear never rushes, its patience is a strategy, and patience is often enough. Energy is always the currency here. When seals are scarce, the bear does not despair, it slows. Activity lowers, almost like a drifting hibernation while still awake, conserving fat reserves, rationing effort. A bear may lie still for hours at a breathing hole, waiting for a seal to surface. It does not waste the weight with fidgeting, it simply waits. This economy of motion is why polar bears endure where so many other predators could not. They know without knowing that survival comes from restraint more than from action. The story deepens when the ice pulls the bear into motherhood. A female heavy with life digs her den into snowdrifts when winter deepens. Inside she will remain for months, a living furnace in the darkness. Cubs are born impossibly small, barely larger than squirrels, blind and helpless. And yet within the warm pocket of the den, they are nourished by milk so rich it feels more like cream, nearly half fat. The mother does not eat during this vigil, drawing instead from the vast reserves she built through months of hunting. Outside, the Arctic roars with storms. Inside, time is measured in the steady pulse of warmth and the sound of cubs pressing close. Emergence is cautious, gradual. When the mother finally leads her young into the light, they blink at the world of ice, bewildered yet destined to learn its codes. They will climb on her back, paw at her fur, test the softness of snow under their feet. Each moment is fragile, but behind them is the quiet resilience of generations who survived the same test. The polar bear is a symbol, yes, but more than a symbol, it is an embodiment of stillness as power. It hunts not through constant chase but through waiting. It survives not by abundance, but by making scarcity last. It moves slowly across ice that drifts faster than it seems, and in its patience lies endurance. To imagine the bear walking is to imagine silence moving, the sound of paws pressing into snow, the breath of a creature that knows the measure of distance and the cost of haste. Their lives are bound to the ice. Each floe is a stepping stone to food, each crack in the sea surface a possible meal. But beyond the biology, there is something in their presence that speaks to us, something about strength that does not roar, but waits. Watching a polar bear at rest, head lifted, eyes scanning the horizon, you might sense how survival can be quiet, how power can be measured in stillness. Think of the black skin beneath the hollow hairs, the hidden warmth beneath the illusion of whiteness. Think of paws broad enough to carry weight without breaking, designed to move softly across ice. Think of patience drawn out over hours, a single breath measured against the sea's rhythm. Think of a mother in her den, nursing cubs in darkness, holding them safe through the long winter storm. Each fact, each adaptation, is not just a survival trick, it is a philosophy written into flesh, a story told in silence across generations. The polar bear is not simply an Arctic predator, it is the shape of endurance carved by cold, the embodiment of patience in a restless world. It reminds us that strength does not need to shout, that survival often whispers, And in the hush of the Arctic, that whisper carries farther than any roar could. If strength can rest so deeply in patience, what might we be missing by always hurrying forward? Across the tundra, where winds sweep unbroken for miles, a small figure moves lightly across the snow. The Arctic fox, no larger than a household cat, survives here with an ease that feels almost like alchemy. It shifts with the seasons, blending into the landscape so completely that it seems less like an animal and more like the tundra's own shadow. Where the polar bear rules by size and patience, the fox rules by transformation, by listening, by finding nourishment in places others overlook. Its fur, thick and lush, holds the secret to its survival. In summer, the coat turns brown or grey, mottled like stone and earth, letting the fox vanish among rocks and tundra moss. But when winter comes, the fur whitens to pure snow, cloaking the body in invisibility. This is not just camouflage but protection. The dense coat traps heat so efficiently that the fox can withstand temperatures dropping far below what most mammals endure. To watch it move across the snow is to watch a ghost in daylight, a creature both there and not there, a quiet magician of survival. The fox carries another gift, a hearing so sharp that it can detect the faintest rustle beneath the snow. In the heart of winter, when food is hidden, it tilts its head, ears twitching, and listens. Somewhere beneath the crust, a lemming or vole stirs. The fox leaps high, body arcing gracefully, and dives nose first into the snow. More often than not, it emerges with a meal, pulled from the hidden world below. This hunting style is both playful and deadly precise, a reminder that sometimes listening closely is enough to feed you. But the fox is also a scavenger, following the larger hunters of the north. When a polar bear finishes with a seal, scraps remain. To a fox, those scraps are treasure. It trots behind, careful but bold, picking clean what the giant leaves behind. In this way, the fox survives on the margins of power, turning leftovers into lifelines. Even in scarcity, it finds abundance by reading the ecosystem's rhythms and weaving itself into the spaces left open by others. Its body tells the story of adaptation written in compact form. Short legs, small ears, and a rounded muzzle all minimize heat loss. Unlike lankier cousins to the south, this fox is built like a sphere wrapped in fur, the most efficient shape to conserve warmth in biting wind. It can curl into a ball, tail wrapped around its body, and sleep on the open tundra, snow drifting over like another layer of insulation. To lie there, invisible and warm beneath a blanket of frost, is a lesson in surrendering to the elements rather than resisting them. The fox also plans ahead, hiding food when it is plentiful. Eggs stolen from nesting birds are tucked away in caches, small reserves buried in the frozen ground. Meat scraps are hidden too, each one marked in memory. Months later, when prey is scarce, the fox returns to these stashes, guided by scent and instinct. What looks like clever foresight is simply another form of survival, an instinct tuned by countless generations who learned that the future is always uncertain here. Watching an Arctic fox trot across the ice, tail streaming like a plume, it is easy to forget the harshness of its life. It looks playful, almost carefree, as if joy and survival were the same thing, and perhaps in a way they are. To live in a place that offers so little yet still find enough to thrive, that is the fox's alchemy. It transforms scarcity into sufficiency, silence into sustenance, cold into shelter. The fox's world is boundless. It roams across tundra, cliffs and frozen bays, often covering vast distances in search of food. Some are tracked wandering hundreds of kilometers across the sea ice, moving between islands, or following the shifting edge of floes. One fox, tagged in Norway, astonished researchers by walking thousands of kilometers to Canada, crossing glaciers and seas in a journey no human would attempt without preparation. Light-footed and tireless, the fox maps the Arctic, not in lines on a chart, but in scent trails, memories and hunger. Think of the creature curled under a snowdrift, invisible except for the faint plume of its breath. Think of it standing still, ears turning like satellites, locating life hidden beneath layers of frozen silence. Think of it trotting in the wake of giants, gathering what they leave behind, never wasting, never rushing. Each adaptation is not only a survival tool, but a philosophy of resourcefulness, a reminder that what looks like scraps to one can be treasure to another. The Arctic fox embodies transformation of fur, of sound into food, of scraps into life. It reminds us that the smallest creatures can hold the deepest resilience. Its magic is quiet, unassuming, but undeniable, And in the silence of the tundra, the little fox's steps echo a truth larger than itself. Survival here is not about dominance, but about blending, listening, and taking what comes with grace. Quiet question. If a creature so small can turn scarcity into enough, what might we be able to transform in our own lives if we listened more closely? On the open tundra, where the land stretches without trees and the horizon is a pale ribbon between snow and sky, herds of caribou move like rivers of life. They flow together, thousands of bodies shifting in quiet unison, their steps tapping out the rhythm of migration. To see them from afar is to watch a continent breathe, their movements tied not to borders or fences, but to the ancient call of seasons. Caribou are the wanderers of the Arctic, living maps of change, tracing patterns as old as ice itself. Their journeys are astonishing, the longest of any land mammal. Across hundreds, sometimes thousands of kilometers, they cross tundra plains, frozen rivers, and mountain passes. In winter they gather in forests, sheltered from winds. In spring they set out toward calving grounds, where tender plants will briefly surge from thawing soil. The migration is endless, not measured in single lives but in generations. Calves walk beside mothers, learning the routes by following, each step sinking the path deeper into memory. Their bodies carry the tools for this journey. The hooves of caribou are remarkable, broad, sharp-edged, and changing with the seasons. In winter, when snow crusts the ground, the hooves spread wide, working like snowshoes, keeping the animal from sinking. In summer, when the tundra softens to mud, those same hooves act like paddles, supporting them through bogs and streams. And when rivers widen into cold torrents, caribou swim strongly, heads held high, legs kicking with steady rhythm. They are as much at home in water as on land, proof that endurance comes not from specialization, but from flexibility. Moving in such vast herds, communication is quiet but constant. A clicking sound follows their steps, the tendons in their ankles snapping over bone as they walk. This sound is not incidental, it is a contact call, a way for individuals to stay aware of one another, even when snow or fog blurs the herd. Imagine thousands of clicks weaving together, like beads falling in unison, a music of movement echoing across frozen plains. It is not the voice of a single caribou, but the collective sound of belonging. Timing is everything. Calves are born at the moment when tundra plants surge into life. For a few short weeks, the Arctic blooms with mosses, sedges and grasses, rich with nutrients. Mothers draw from this abundance to feed their young, building strength quickly before the next winter sets in. If they arrive too early, the plants have not yet grown, too late, and the season is already waning. Generations of instinct guide the timing, a synchrony of life with the pulse of the tundra. The migration is a lesson in trust in memory, in instinct, in the body's ability to endure. Caribou travel not for the sake of distance, but for survival, always moving between the places where life briefly opens its hand. To stop would mean hunger, but to keep moving is to find sustenance. Each year's journey redraws the Arctic in hoofprints, etching invisible lines that stretch farther than any single life can travel. Predators follow, of course. Wolves trail the herds, watching for weakness. Bears, when the chance arises, test the edge of the migration. But caribou survive not by defeating these hunters, but by outlasting them, by moving in numbers so vast that life outweighs loss. The herd itself is a shield, a living multitude that carries forward even as individuals fall behind. In the rhythm of migration, survival is not about one life but about many, woven together by shared motion. Think of the caribou standing on a frozen river, hooves spread, nostrils flaring in the cold. Think of them lifting their heads to catch scents on the wind, the faint call of green fields still far away. Think of the calves trotting beside mothers, learning the path step by step, a map carried not in lines on paper, but in muscle and bone. The migration is not only a journey of bodies, but a passing down of memory, a heritage of movement stretching beyond sight. Caribou remind us that life does not stand still, even in the land of ice. Their endless journey is not aimless wandering, but a rhythm of survival, tuned to plants that grow for only weeks, to rivers that freeze and thaw, to snow that shifts each year yet always returns. They embody patience in motion, endurance not through force but through constancy. Their gift is to keep going, to keep following the path no matter how far it runs, because in that path lies survival. As the herd stretches across the horizon, their shapes blur into one another, a single living wave rolling over the tundra. To watch them is to feel the pull of movement, the quiet strength of bodies shaped by distance, the hush of thousands of feet carrying a story older than memory. The caribou's gift is not only to endure, but to remind us that life is motion, that survival often means never standing still. If the path forward is always moving, always changing, how do we know when to stay and when to follow? On the windswept tundra, where blizzards sweep like rivers of air, there are animals that carry with them an age older than ice. Musk oxen, shaggy and broad, walk across the land with the quiet dignity of survivors who have seen epochs pass. Their lineage stretches back to the last ice age, when mammoths roamed and glaciers covered much of the earth. The musk ox remains, not through ferocity, but through warmth, through bonds, through endurance, written into hair and bone. Their coats are unlike anything else in the north. Beneath the long shaggy guard hairs lies a second layer, kivute, a down so fine and insulating that it outperforms sheep's wool by a wide margin. Kivute traps warmth in air pockets so well that even in the fiercest storms, the oxen remain wrapped in stillness, their bodies glowing with the quiet heat of survival. Unlike the wool of sheep, kivute does not mat when wet, it continues to insulate, a gift refined over millennia. To stroke it would be to touch softness beyond belief, but to wear it is to feel the calm defiance of cold itself. When danger approaches, musk oxen do not scatter. Instead, they form a circle, broad shoulders and heavy horns facing outward, calves tucked safely in the center. This ancient strategy has preserved them against wolves, against the biting winds, against the uncertainty of the tundra. The circle is more than defense, it is community. Each individual lends its strength to protect the whole. In the silence of a snowstorm, the formation stands like a fortress of fur and bone, a living wall that will not break. Their bodies are built low and broad, legs short but powerful, torsos heavy with muscle. This shape conserves heat, reducing the surface exposed to icy winds. The oxen graze slowly, moving with a rhythm that seems unhurried, even in the brief Arctic summer. In blizzards, their low stance keeps them steady, heads lowered against the gale. To watch them move across deep snow is to see patience embodied, no haste, only the quiet persistence of creatures who know that survival is not won in speed, but in steadiness. When summer returns, so too does the season of challenge in another form. The rut, the breeding season, arrives with displays of force and endurance. Bulls clash head to head, the sound of horns echoing across the tundra like rolling thunder. Yet even here the battles are measured, thick skulls absorb the force, and the clashes, though fierce, end with ritual certainty. Calves born from this season will face their first winter swaddled in the collective warmth of the herd, already part of a story that has stretched across ice ages. Food on the tundra is never abundant, yet the musk ox thrives by taking what is available and making it enough. Their mouths are tuned to graze on grasses, sedges and willows, plants that grow low to the ground, stubborn against the Arctic wind. Even in the snowbound months, the oxen use their hooves to scrape away frost, uncovering hidden shoots or dried stalks. Nothing is wasted, nothing overlooked. They survive by taking what little the land offers and transforming it into endurance. Think of them standing in the snow, coats blowing in the wind, steam rising faintly from their bodies as they breathe. Think of the circle, unbroken, calves pressed close in safety, while adults stand firm against the storm. Think of the softness of kivute, hidden beneath rough hairs, a luxury of warmth concealed in ruggedness. These are not merely animals of the north, they are living relics, time travelers from an age when the world was colder and larger creatures fell away. The musk ox did not fall, it stayed steady and silent, teaching survival not as conquest but as endurance through community. There is a quiet reassurance in their presence. In a land where survival often depends on individual skill, the fox listening beneath snow, the bear waiting at a seal's hole, musk oxen remind us that survival can also mean standing together, shoulder to shoulder, protecting the young at all costs. Their circle is more than instinct, it is philosophy made flesh, a statement that in numbers, in care, in collective warmth, there is power enough to face the longest night. To watch them graze in summer light, shaggy coats shedding tufts of kivute in the breeze, is to glimpse another side of their story. Calves, playful and awkward, chase one another around the herd, safe in the watchful eyes of mothers and aunts. The tundra blooms briefly, and for a few weeks food is abundant, bodies are strong, and the weight of winter recedes into memory. But the oxen do not hurry, they know what will come again. Their pace remains calm, their movements deliberate, as though they carry the wisdom of ages. Summer is brief, winter is long, and endurance is built not in moments of plenty, but in preparation for scarcity. The muskox does not stand out with the sleek grace of a predator or the vast journeys of a migrator. Its strength is quieter, less obvious. It is in the warmth of fur, the steadfastness of a circle, the ability to endure the long winter without breaking. In that steadiness lies a lesson. Survival is not always a matter of outpacing the cold, but of standing firm within it, together, and letting the storm pass around you. Quiet question. If strength can be found not in isolation, but in the warmth of circles, how might our own lives change if we leaned more fully on one another? In the stillness of the frozen sea, where the surface is a crust of ice stretching as far as the horizon, life continues quietly below. Here dwell the seals, animals whose survival depends on patience, on rhythm, on finding breath in a world where air is locked behind ice. They are creatures of two realms, moving with equal grace in water and snow, shaping their lives around the simple, constant need to breathe. In their patience, they embody the calm endurance of the Arctic. Ringed seals, the smallest yet most abundant of the Arctic seals, are masters of persistence. With strong claws and sharp teeth, they maintain breathing holes in the ice all winter long. These openings are lifelines, kept from freezing over by constant care. Even when blizzards bury the world in snow and darkness stretches for months, the seal rises again and again to these same small openings, finding the thin connection between sea and sky. It is a ritual of survival, an unbroken rhythm of surfacing and diving, of holding and releasing breath. In winter, the seals also carve layers beneath snowdrifts, subnivean shelters that insulate against the worst of the cold. Here females give birth to pups in hidden chambers, safe from the wind and the biting air. These layers are fragile havens, muffling sound, conserving heat, protecting the tiny white-furred young during their earliest days. Above them, storms rage and predators prowl, but within the snow, life begins in softness. To imagine a pup breathing its first breaths in a chamber of snow is to understand how even the harshest landscapes can cradle gentleness. The bodies of seals are tuned to the cold. Beneath their skin lies a thick layer of blubber, a natural barrier that insulates and stores energy. This fat allows them to fast when food is scarce and to endure long dives without losing warmth. Their shape is sleek, streamlined, built to slip through icy water with ease. Each movement is efficient, nothing wasted, every motion conserving more energy than it spends. In a place where survival is measured in heartbeats and calories, efficiency is its own kind of wisdom. Their whiskers, delicate and bristled, carry another secret. Sensitive enough to detect the faint vibrations of fish moving through dark water, they allow the seals to hunt even when vision fails. In the Arctic winter, when the sea beneath the ice is black as ink, these whiskers become instruments of perception, tracing ripples and motions invisible to the eye. Hunting in this way is not a frantic chase but a patient listening, a silent awareness of water's hidden language. The dives themselves are short and measured, rarely extending into extremes. Unlike some deep-diving whales, seals balance their time carefully, surfacing often to conserve warmth and oxygen. They know, without knowing, that every heartbeat spent underwater must be matched by a safe return to air. To watch a seal rise through a breathing hole, exhaling a plume of mist before vanishing again, is to see a rhythm older than memory, the rhythm of lungs and ocean bound together. Seals are also central to the lives of others. They are the primary prey of polar bears, who wait by the very breathing holes the seals maintain. Yet this predator-prey relationship is not a story of violence, but of interdependence. The patience of the seal teaches the patience of the bear. Each waits, each depends on the other for survival in different ways. Around the seal, the Arctic web of life tightens, foxes scavenging leftovers, gulls circling above, bears waiting silently, the ocean feeding the seal itself. In one small breathing hole lies the pattern of an entire ecosystem. Think of a seal resting beneath the ice, whiskers twitching, body still. Think of it surfacing at a hole it has kept open for months, exhaling mist that freezes instantly in the night air. Think of the tiny pup in its snow chamber, blind but warm, its life beginning in a world that should be too cold to allow such fragility. Each image is not only survival, but a reminder that life endures by finding the narrowest cracks, the smallest openings, and turning them into lifelines. The seal embodies patience. Patience in maintaining holes, in listening with whiskers, in diving and resurfacing with measured calm. It is not a restless animal, but a rhythmic one, tuned to the cycles of sea and ice, and through its patience, others survive as well. The bear, the fox, even the gull depend on the seal's persistence. Without these small quiet creatures, the Arctic would be emptier, its food chains fractured, its silence deeper. In the end, the seal is both fragile and resilient, hidden and essential. It lives in a world where air is scarce, where predators wait at every turn, and yet it thrives, generation after generation, by holding fast to rhythm and patience. Beneath the frozen ocean, it reminds us that survival does not always come through strength or speed. Sometimes it comes simply by keeping a hole open, by remembering where to surface, by trusting that air will always be there when needed. If patience can keep life flowing in a world sealed by ice, what might patience open for us when everything feels closed? On the drifting edges of the pack ice, where the sea opens into dark lanes of water, the walrus gathers in herds so large they seem to turn the floes into living islands. Heavy, whiskered and immense, they haul their bodies onto the ice with surprising grace, tusks carving into the edge as anchors. To see a walrus up close is to meet both power and gentleness woven together, a creature that thrives not in solitude, but in company, a giant whose survival depends on closeness, on sound, on the warmth of many bodies pressed side by side. Those tusks, long and curved, are more than ornaments. They are tools, strong enough to hook into ice and lift the walrus's weight from the water. Males wield them in social contests, clashing and displaying, not only to win mates, but to establish presence in the crowded hierarchy of a herd. Yet the tusks are not merely weapons, they are also symbols of belonging, visible markers in the slow ballet of dominance and respect that unfolds on every beach and floe. Watching a walrus raise its head, tusks gleaming, is to see an ancient emblem of strength, not sharp for killing, but curved for anchoring, lifting and declaring identity. The walrus's face tells another story, its muzzle dense with whiskers, called vibrissae, each one finely tuned to movement. With these, the walrus explores the sea floor like a blind hand feeling its way across sand. Clams buried beneath silt are detected instantly, pulled free by powerful suction as the walrus inhales with astonishing force. Entire beds of shellfish sustain these giants, food hidden beneath the surface revealed through the touch of whiskers alone. In the Arctic night where light vanishes and the water turns black, this sense becomes their compass, their map, their assurance that food waits below. They do not live alone. Walruses gather in dense herds, bodies pressed together, skin against skin, warmth shared through sheer proximity. On ice floes, dozens may pile atop one another, a living mass of brown hides and tusks, their low grunts blending into a steady chorus. On beaches, the herds grow even larger, stretching across the sand in restless waves of movement. This closeness is more than comfort, it is survival. In the frigid north, the heat of many bodies keeps each individual warmer than it could ever be alone. Safety too comes in numbers, as the herd rises together at the scent of threat, a living wall of tusks and weight. In the water, warriors show another side of their life. Calves cling to their mothers, often riding on their broad backs when seas are rough. The bond is tender and enduring, the calf nurtured not only by rich milk, but by constant attention, always close to its mother's side. To witness this is to understand that even among giants, care is as vital as strength. The warrior's survival strategy is not only to gather clams or to wield tusks, but to nurture, to hold close, to carry life forward in touch and presence. They are giants, but their movements are often gentle. In the sea, their great bulk transforms into buoyancy, bodies rolling and gliding with surprising ease. A herd may surface together, whiskers dripping, tusks breaking the surface like pale crescents, their voices rise in guttural songs, clicks and bell-like calls that carry across water. These sounds bind the herd, keep calves close, and mark each individual's place in the community. To listen to walruses is to hear a music made of low tones, heavy but strangely soothing, as if the ocean itself were humming. Walruses are shaped by contrasts, massive yet tender, armored with tusks yet dependent on touch, slow on land yet graceful in water. They endure the cold not alone but through togetherness, not by fleeing threats but by gathering strength in herds that can stretch for hundreds, even thousands of individuals. Their world is social, layered with bonds that are as important as the food they find beneath the sea. Think of them now, clustered on an ice floe, the air thick with their breath, steam rising in the cold. Think of the calves clinging tightly to their mothers, carried gently across waves. Think of the tusks hooking into the ice, lifting bulk from water with effortless power. Think of the whiskers, quivering at the faintest motion, finding clams in the dark sea floor. Each detail is a piece of their story, a story of survival written not in solitude, but in company, in sound, in warmth. The walrus teaches us that survival can be social, that life in harsh places can be endured through connection and closeness. They are giants, yes, but giants that lean into one another, that thrive not by standing apart, but by pressing together. In their world, the herd is the strength, the group is the shield, and the bond between mother and calf is as enduring as tusks carved from years of growth. Quiet question: if the greatest strength of a giant lies not in isolation but in closeness, what might we discover if we allowed ourselves to rest more fully in the presence of others? In the silent waters of the Arctic, where ice drifts like continents across the sea, a shape rises that seems almost mythical. From the surface, a slender spiral pierces the air, gleaming pale in the cold light. This is the narwhal, the unicorn of the ocean, a creature whose presence feels closer to legend than reality. Yet it is real, moving in groups beneath the pack ice, living lives shaped by sound, patience, and the secret hidden within its long tusk. That tusk, growing from the upper jaw of males, is no simple ornament. It is a tooth stretched impossibly long, spiraling counterclockwise, often reaching lengths of 2 or 3 meters. Beneath the ivory shell lies a core alive with nerves, making the tusk a sensory organ of rare refinement. Scientists believe it detects subtle changes in the sea, shifts in salinity, temperature, even the presence of prey. To see a narwhal raise its tusk through the air is to glimpse not a weapon but an antenna, tuned to the invisible signals of the Arctic Ocean. The narwhal's life is one of depth. They dive farther than almost any other whale, descending over 1,500 meters into darkness. Down there in the silence beneath ice, they hunt Greenland halibut, squid, and fish that never see the sun. Their dives are measured, lasting long minutes, lungs collapsing gently to withstand the crushing pressure. When they return, they surface quietly in leads, those narrow ribbons of open water that cut across the floes, rising together in synchrony, exhaling plumes of breath into the frozen air. Their rhythm is precise, born of necessity. In a land where the ocean roof is sealed by ice, timing means life. Summer brings them inland, into sheltered fjords and bays. Here the groups gather, sometimes numbering in the hundreds, weaving slowly through turquoise waters, their backs arching, their tusks flashing like pale spears in the sun. In winter they move offshore again, deeper into the pack ice, where only the bravest whales dare to live. Few creatures follow them into such harsh habitats, yet the narwhal endures, shaped by the icy architecture of sea and season. They are not loud like the beluga, their close cousin, but they do speak in their own quiet way. Narwhals use high-pitched clicks, bursts of sound that echo through dark water, guiding them to prey invisible to the eye. These echolocation calls are sharp and purposeful, painting a world of outlines in the blackness of the deep. The sound is brief, almost secretive, fitting for a creature that seems to carry mystery in its very body. When narwhals move in groups, they surface almost as one. Dozens may rise together through a narrow lead, tusks breaking the surface like a forest of spirals. There is calm in their synchrony, an order that makes their presence seem choreographed, though it is only instinct. Watching them glide together through an opening in the ice is like watching time slow, each animal perfectly attuned to the others, each breath a shared act. The tusk has long fascinated humans, treasured in centuries past as a magical artifact. For generations it was traded as the horn of unicorns, believed to hold healing powers or to neutralize poison. Today we know the truth. It is no horn of myth, but a tooth of reality, shaped by evolution into something both practical and wondrous. Still, its presence feels enchanted, a symbol of how the real world can outmatch even the boldest legends in beauty. Life for narwhals is never easy. The ice shifts constantly, closing passages, threatening to trap them away from air. Predators like orcas and polar bears lurk at the margins of their range, yet they endure by trusting in patience, in depth, in the subtle guidance of their tusk. They do not flee the harshest waters, they inhabit them fully, turning the seeming dangers of pack ice into their safest refuge, because so few others can follow. Think of them now, deep beneath the ice, bodies moving silently in darkness. Think of them rising through a narrow lead, breath erupting in silver mist before vanishing again. Think of the spiral tusk filled with nerves, tasting the sea in ways we cannot sense, mapping an invisible world. Their lives are hidden, rarely glimpsed, yet they are as real as the drift of ice, as steady as the tides. The narwhal embodies mystery, but also resilience. It reminds us that not everything needs to be explained to be valued, that beauty can carry purpose beyond our eyes. Its tusk is not a weapon, though it has been mistaken for one, but a channel of perception, a way to survive where vision fails. And the narwhal itself is not a myth, though it has inspired countless ones. It is proof that reality is often more wondrous than imagination. Quiet question. If the world holds truth stranger than our legends, how much might we be missing by believing only in what we already expect? In the northern seas, where rivers meet the ocean, and the summer sun turns ice into flowing water, pale shapes rise like ghosts from the depths. These are belugas, the white whales, their bodies glowing against the dark current, their movements fluid and curious. Unlike the narwhal, whose mystery lies in silence and tusks, the beluga's gift is voice. They are called the canaries of the sea, and in their songs lies a portrait of life in a world that is both harsh and tender. Belugas are among the most expressive of whales. Their bodies are built for agility, with a flexibility rare among their kin. Unlike most whales, they have unfused neck vertebrae, allowing their heads to turn side to side, to tilt and pivot as they navigate narrow ice corridors. This freedom gives them an almost playful appearance, as if they are always aware of the space around them, adjusting with ease to the shifting world. In a place where ice can close quickly, trapping the careless, this simple adaptation is more than play, it is survival. Their voices carry through bays and estuaries, a chorus of whistles, clicks and trills. Each group seems to weave its own language, patterns of sound that identify individuals, mark relationships, and guide movement. To listen underwater is to hear a tapestry of conversation, the sea alive with echoes and replies. In shallow estuaries, where their young are born and nurtured, these voices seem almost like laughter, filling the water with brightness that belies the severity of the Arctic. In summer, belugas gather in large numbers, sometimes hundreds at a time, moving upriver into warmer shallows. Here they molt, rubbing their pale bodies along gravel beds to shed old skin stained by algae. The sight of them rolling together in shallow water, bodies gleaming white in the sun, is one of the Arctic's gentlest spectacles, an act both practical and communal, cleaning not just the skin, but reaffirming bonds. Their presence in rivers ties them to the land as well as the sea, bridging two worlds as they follow ancestral roots. Belugas are deeply social. They live in matrilineal groups, mothers guiding calves, aunts and grandmothers lending care. Calves stay close to their mothers for years, nurtured not only by milk, but by the voices that guide and reassure them. In the constant dialogue of the group, a young whale learns how to navigate, how to find food, how to survive. Survival here is not solitary, but shared, carried forward by many voices speaking as one. The beluga's coloration, pure white in adulthood, is itself an adaptation. In ice-filled waters, the pale skin offers camouflage from predators like orcas, blending with flows and snow. Calves are born grey, dark enough to be less visible in summer rivers, and only gradually lighten with age. Watching a pod surface together, the older whales bright and white, the younger grey and shadowed, is to see generations moving side by side, the past and the future swimming as one. Hunting for belugas is guided by sound as much as sight. They echolocate with precision, sending clicks into the water that bounce back as maps of fish and seafloor. In estuaries and bays, where currents shift silt and visibility is low, this sense is indispensable. They feed on fish, squid and crustaceans, darting with agility in waters too shallow for larger whales to maneuver. Their bodies, smaller and more flexible, allow them to thrive in places others cannot reach. Belugas have a gift for curiosity. They often approach boats, not with fear but with apparent interest, circling, vocalizing, and sometimes surfacing near humans. This openness has made them beloved but also vulnerable, yet in their curiosity lies resilience, a willingness to engage with the unfamiliar, to adapt, to learn. They are creatures shaped not only by the harshness of their world, but by its moments of softness, where rivers open and voices carry. Picture them now, pale bodies rising in unison, water sheeting off their backs in silver arcs. Picture them turning their heads, scanning ice corridors with ease. Picture the soundscape of their world, whistles rising, trills tumbling, a chorus that fills the sea with more song than silence. To hear them is to feel the Arctic as not only stillness, but also conversation, not only survival but joy woven into sound. The beluga is not just a whale of the Arctic, it is a reminder that communication is as vital as breath, that sound can carry warmth where the air is coldest. In their voices we hear the truth, that survival is not only about finding food or shelter, but about connection, about being part of a group that speaks and listens together. They are the voices of white water, and through them the Arctic sings. Quiet question. If survival can depend on the voices we share with one another, what might change if we listened more closely to the songs already around us? In the far north, where winter never loosens its grip for long, there swims a whale whose life spans centuries. The bowhead, immense and slow, moves through the Arctic seas with a patience beyond imagination. It is a creature of endurance, not just across seasons, but across lifetimes longer than any other mammal. To look into the dark eye of a bowhead is to feel the weight of centuries reflected back, as if the ocean itself were remembering through the body of the whale. Their lifespans can stretch beyond 200 years. Some individuals alive today were born before electricity lit human cities, before railways crisscrossed continents. They carry within them a living memory of time, passing quietly through the ice while human generations rise and fall. In scars across their bodies, in harpoons embedded long ago yet carried still, their history lingers, a reminder of survival, not only against the elements, but against human pursuit. To imagine a whale living through 2 centuries of change is to glimpse a perspective far larger than our own fleeting time. The bowhead is built for this world of ice. Its skull is massive, strong enough to break through frozen ceilings a meter thick, allowing the whale to breathe even when the ocean roof is sealed. Watching one rise through ice, shattering the silence with a breath that steams into the air, is to witness power expressed not in speed but in persistence. The bowhead does not avoid the ice, it moves directly through it, reshaping its world one breath at a time. Its body is wrapped in blubber thicker than that of any other whale, insulation so dense that it not only shields against cold, but provides energy reserves for long seasons of scarcity. Beneath this protective layer, the bowhead's metabolism runs slow, conserving energy in a place where food comes only in bursts. When the spring bloom of plankton fills the water, the whale opens its vast mouth and sieves life through baleen plates, consuming tons of tiny creatures in great slow sweeps. When winter returns, it endures on stored reserves, drifting in quiet arcs beneath the ice. Their songs are among the most haunting in the north. Unlike the repeating phrases of humpback whales, bowhead songs change subtly across decades and across seas. Each population has its own evolving melody, carried through the dark waters of the Arctic night. To listen to a bowhead is to hear time itself in motion, songs that shift as slowly as glaciers, each note a fragment of an endless composition written by generations of whales. Some sing with whistles and moans, others with patterns that seem almost experimental, a living music of survival echoing under the ice. They move slowly, often no faster than a human walks. This unhurried pace is not weakness but wisdom, a way of conserving energy, of stretching life across centuries. Speed may serve in the short term, but slowness has allowed the bowhead to endure in the harshest seas. To see one glide through the water, vast mouth open, flukes rising in quiet rhythm, is to see an animal completely at home in stillness. Its life is not a chase but a drift, a patience written in muscle and bone. In the Arctic, where nearly all lives are brief, the bowhead stands apart. Foxes live only a few short years, owls perhaps a decade or two, seals a little longer. Even other whales rarely approach such spans. But the bowhead endures, century upon century, not as an anomaly, but as a testament to how life can stretch when measured carefully. In their calm, they hold a continuity that the rest of the Arctic cannot. They are not just individuals, they are archives, carrying the memory of seas long vanished, of ice fields long melted. Think of them now, surfacing through ice that cracks beneath the push of their skull. Think of them moving slowly, mouths open, filtering clouds of plankton invisible to our eyes. Think of their songs echoing in darkness, melodies evolving across generations, music carried in deep currents. Think of the centuries folded into each body, the resilience of lives that last far longer than our own. The bowhead whale is not simply a creature of the north, it is the timekeeper of the Arctic, the slow pulse of centuries beating beneath ice and sea. Their existence invites reflection. What is it like to live through centuries in silence, to witness the same ice returning, retreating and forming again, year after year? What wisdom accumulates in a body that survives so long? Listening, singing, enduring, the bowhead does not answer these questions, but it embodies them, carrying mystery as easily as it carries blubber. In its slow, calm way, it shows us that life does not always need to hurry, that survival sometimes belongs to those who wait longest, who breathe deeply, who endure. Quiet question. If a creature can live for centuries in patience and calm, how do we measure the span of our own lives, and are we rushing through them too quickly? On the tundra, where flatness stretches into infinity and shadows are scarce, a pale bird rises into the air. The snowy owl, wings broad and silent, glides across the frozen earth like a piece of winter itself set into motion. Its eyes, round and yellow, scan the ground with unyielding focus. Below, the snow conceals a restless world, for beneath the crust, lemmings tunnel and scurry, small bodies whose abundance or absence shapes the fate of the owl. Between predator and prey lies a balance so delicate that the rhythm of one life echoes through the other. The snowy owl is a master of sight in dimness. Its irises widen fully to gather every trace of light, allowing it to hunt across the open tundra, even when daylight is faint, or the long twilight of winter lingers. From its perch on a hummock or drift, the owl waits with stillness, scanning the expanse for motion. When a lemming darts from a burrow or pushes snow upward from its tunnels, the owl launches with precision, wings silent, talons extended. To watch the strike is to see hunger and patience resolved in a single quiet dive. But the lives of snowy owls are bound tightly to the cycles of lemmings. When lemming numbers swell in boom years, the owls flourish. Females may lay large clutches of eggs, sometimes more than 10, confident that food will be plentiful. Chicks grow strong on a steady supply of prey, and families dot the tundra with life. In lean years, when lemmings crash in number, owl nests grow fewer, clutches smaller, some pairs choosing not to breed at all. Their rhythm follows the pulse of the small rodents, rising and falling with invisible tides beneath the snow. Even in flight, the owl's silence is remarkable. Feathers extend over its toes and legs, insulating against the cold but also softening sound. Each wing beat is muffled, each glide a whisper, so that prey hears nothing until it is too late. This silence, paired with vision that pierces dimness, makes the owl a perfect hunter for the open expanse. To imagine it moving in darkness, white against white, is to glimpse how invisibility can be achieved not only by blending in, but by moving without a sound. Nesting on the ground, the owls choose open vantage points where they can see far in every direction. No trees rise to shelter them here, so vigilance replaces cover. A mound of earth or patch of raised tundra becomes a nest, where the female guards eggs and later chicks, scanning the horizon for danger. Foxes, jaguars, and even wolves may test the nest's safety, but the snowy owl defends fiercely. Wings spread, body low, it rushes forward with a hiss, striking with talons if necessary. Even the smallest intrusion is met with defiance, for in the open world of the tundra, protection must be bold. Juveniles, when grown enough to fly, do not linger. They disperse widely, following prey waves across the Arctic, sometimes traveling thousands of kilometers in search of lemming-rich grounds. This wandering carries them into unexpected places, even far beyond the tundra, as they track the ebb and flow of small lives hidden beneath snow. The owl, though tied to one prey, shows resilience in motion, willing to chase sustenance wherever it rises. Each migration etches invisible lines across continents, guided not by season alone but by the promise of abundance. The snowy owl embodies contrasts, large and fierce, yet entirely dependent on creatures small and fragile, bright and conspicuous, yet able to vanish in silence across a white horizon, seemingly solitary, yet woven tightly into the cycles of prey. It is a predator, yes, but not one that rules unchallenged. Its existence is tethered to the lives of rodents whose tunnels stitch the snow. Without lemmings, the owl's reign falters, with them it soars. The balance is fragile but enduring, repeating again and again as the years turn. Think of an owl perched against a backdrop of snow, feathers ruffled in the wind, yellow eyes unblinking. Think of a lemming pushing a tunnel upward, snow shifting like breath, a small body racing just below the surface. Think of the silence of wings cutting the air, the sudden strike, the balance maintained in each brief exchange. These are the rhythms of the tundra, predator and prey bound together, each shaping the other's fate, each necessary for the continuation of the whole. The snowy owl is not simply a hunter, but a participant in the cycles of the Arctic, cycles that remind us how interconnected all lives are. Its survival depends not on dominance alone, but on balance, on the hidden abundance of creatures that most would never see. It shows us that strength can be tethered to fragility, that majesty can rely on the smallest movements beneath snow. In its gaze and its silence, it reflects a truth of the North. Every life, no matter how grand, leans on the quiet persistence of another. If the greatness of one life depends so completely on the small unseen rhythms of another, how many unseen threads hold up our own lives without our noticing? Across the Arctic's shifting seasons, where snow covers the tundra for most of the year, and summer brings only a fleeting flush of color, two creatures have perfected the art of invisibility. The ptarmigan and the Arctic hare live not by strength or speed alone, but by disappearing into their surroundings, changing with the seasons, so that they are never quite distinct from the land itself. Their survival is written in feathers and fur, blending so seamlessly that predator and prey alike may pass by unaware. The ptarmigan, a plump bird related to grouse, undergoes a transformation each year that feels almost magical. In summer, its feathers are mottled brown and gray, patterned like stone and earth. Against the rocky tundra, it vanishes into the landscape, nearly impossible to spot until it moves. But when winter arrives and snow spreads across the ground, the ptarmigan molts into pure white. Its plumage is not just camouflage but insulation, layered thick and soft to hold warmth in bitter cold. Feathers cover even its feet, acting like natural snowshoes that spread its weight and keep it from sinking into drifts. To see a ptarmigan sitting in the snow is to doubt your eyes, for the bird and the land become indistinguishable. The Arctic hare carries a similar gift. In the short summer, its fur is gray or brown, allowing it to blend with rock and tundra moss. By winter, it shifts to white, fur dense and warm, turning the animal into a snowdrift come alive. Hares gather in groups, sometimes dozens together, crouched low to the ground so that their rounded bodies resemble patches of snow. When a predator approaches, they may hold still, invisible against the background, until the very last moment. Then, with sudden speed, they bound away, powerful legs carrying them across the tundra in leaps so swift they seem like gusts of wind turned solid. Camouflage here is not vanity but necessity. The Arctic is open and vast, with little cover for hiding. Every creature is exposed, every movement visible across miles of snow and sky. To disappear is to survive, and so feathers and fur adapt with the seasons, reshaping the very appearance of these animals to match the land. For the ptarmigan, plumage also shifts in stages, with patches of mottling during autumn and spring that mirror the patchwork of melting snow. The hare, too, passes through gradual changes, never out of step with the shifting colors of its world. These adaptations extend beyond color. Both creatures are shaped to conserve heat in stillness and to release it in motion. The hare's compact posture reduces exposure to the wind, ears shortened to avoid losing warmth. The ptarmigan's crouch presses it low against the ground, minimizing shadow and making it less likely to be noticed. Each is not only hidden by appearance, but by shape, by posture, by behavior learned across countless winters. When food is scarce in winter, both turn to what the land still offers. Ptarmigans scratch through snow to find buds, twigs and berries clinging to shrubs buried beneath frost. Arctic hares gnaw on woody stems, bark and lichen, extracting energy from the barest of resources. Their digestive systems adapt to this harsh diet, breaking down fibrous material that would defeat many other creatures. To see a hare nibbling at frozen twigs or a ptarmigan pecking at hidden buds is to witness resilience disguised as simplicity. There is also strength in numbers. Ptarmigan gather in flocks during winter, their groupings confusing predators and making vigilance easier. Hares too may cluster, their many eyes scanning for danger, their group posture amplifying the illusion of snow patches scattered across the land. Yet even in groups, their reliance on camouflage is profound. They do not seek confrontation or flight until the last possible moment. Stillness is their shield, patience their defense. Imagine walking across the tundra in late winter, your eyes scanning the white expanse. Ahead, you think you see nothing but snow. Yet with a sudden burst, a ptarmigan erupts from the ground, wings beating in silence until it vanishes again against the snow farther on. Or picture a patch of snow shifting, suddenly breaking into motion as hares scatter in leaps across the open plain. The Arctic is alive with ghosts, present yet hidden, seen only when they choose to move. Their mastery of camouflage reminds us that survival often depends not on dominance, but on harmony with surroundings. By becoming the land itself, the ptarmigan and the hare avoid notice, conserve energy, and wait out the harshness of winter. They thrive not by standing apart, but by blending in, teaching us that sometimes the surest way to endure is to be unnoticed, to let the world pass by without remark. Think of the feathers covering the ptarmigan's toes, tiny snowshoes built into its body. Think of the hare's fur, whitening gradually with the snow until it disappears completely into the landscape. Think of the groups clustered together, appearing as nothing more than patches of frost. Each adaptation is a kind of invisibility, a transformation that turns vulnerability into strength. The ptarmigan and the Arctic hare embody a philosophy of survival through disguise. They remind us that change, when aligned with the world around us, is not weakness but resilience. In their shifting colors, in their stillness and sudden leaps, they reveal the quiet wisdom of blending with what is larger than oneself. They are the masters of camouflage, teachers of patience, guides in the art of becoming what the world requires. If survival can come from blending in so completely that one almost disappears, what parts of ourselves might we soften or reshape to move more gently through our own environments? In the Arctic, survival often belongs not to the largest or fastest, but to those who endure through quiet persistence. Among the tundra's predators, wolves and wolverines embody this resilience. They are not constant presences on the open ice like the bear, nor do they draw attention through tusks or songs. Instead, they move with subtlety, following paths of necessity, scavenging, hunting, and surviving in landscapes where resources are thin and distances immense. To understand them is to see how life continues in silence, through strategy rather than spectacle. The Arctic wolf, pale-coated and lean, trails across vast distances behind caribou herds. These wolves live where few others would venture, inhabiting regions so remote that human eyes rarely find them. Their survival depends on the movement of the herds, for caribou are both prey and compass. Wolves follow their migrations over hundreds of kilometers, testing the edges of the herd, watching for the weak, the young, the tired. They are not reckless hunters. Each pursuit is measured, for chasing too long wastes more energy than it yields. Instead, they rely on patience, waiting for the herd itself to reveal vulnerability. When wolves hunt, it is rarely a single animal's work. They move together in packs, coordinated without words, a choreography of instinct, passed down through generations. A lead wolf may test the herd, nudging it into motion, while others wait to intercept. The chase is not chaos but design, unfolding with precision until one animal falters and the pack closes in. It is a reminder that survival in the Arctic often belongs to the collective rather than the individual. Alone, a wolf might starve. Together they endure. In contrast, the wolverine is solitary, a shadow moving across snowfields and cliffs. Stocky and muscular, with jaws strong enough to crack frozen bone, it survives not by numbers, but by ferocity and adaptability. Wolverines are opportunists, scavengers as much as hunters, capable of driving off animals many times their size. Their strength is not just physical, but mental, a tenacity that refuses surrender. Where wolves rely on the group, wolverines rely on sheer determination, a survival strategy that has carried them across some of the harshest landscapes on Earth. Wolverines are masters of storage. In winter, when prey is scarce and temperatures drop, they cache food in the snow, burying pieces of meat to preserve them in nature's freezer. Later, when hunger presses and the land is empty, they return to these hidden reserves, sustenance bought by foresight. This behavior ensures that even in famine, there is a chance of survival. Each cache is a thread tied to the future, a quiet promise that tomorrow might still offer nourishment. Both wolves and wolverines are adapted to the ice underfoot. Wolves have frost-resistant foot pads, able to grip the frozen ground without damage. Wolverines with broad paws move across snow like small snowshoes, spreading their weight to avoid sinking. Each step is tuned to the terrain, allowing them to cover long distances without faltering. For both, territory is immense, wolves following herds across valleys, wolverines marking vast ranges with scent that can be detected over kilometers. Their maps are not drawn but smelled, invisible networks of trails and boundaries that shape their movements across the Arctic expanse. The presence of these predators keeps balance in the ecosystem. Wolves thin the caribou herds, ensuring only the strongest thrive. Wolverines, by scavenging, clean the land of remains that might otherwise linger. Together they close circles of life, recycling energy, preventing waste, holding the tundra in its fragile equilibrium. Without them, the rhythm would falter. Prey herds might swell beyond the land's capacity, and carrion might fester unclaimed. Their quiet survival is not only personal but communal, woven into the health of the land itself. To imagine wolves is to see shapes moving low against the horizon, pale forms almost blending with the snow until they shift in unison. Their breath steams in the cold, their eyes sharp, their bodies lean from the endless miles. To imagine wolverines is to picture a solitary figure, compact and powerful, trudging steadily across drifts, claws biting into ice, never hurried, never hesitant. Each embodies a different kind of endurance, one collective, the other solitary, both born of necessity. Their stories remind us that survival is not always dramatic. It is often quiet, hidden, overlooked. Wolves are heard in distant howls, more often than seen, their calls drifting across the tundra as signals to one another. Wolverines slip unseen through forests and snowfields, their presence marked only by tracks in the frost or scraps left behind. They are ghosts of the Arctic, not absent but unnoticed, thriving precisely because they do not demand attention. Think of a wolf pack trailing silently behind a herd, paws crunching softly on snow. Think of a wolverine burying meat beneath drifts, then vanishing into the cold, leaving only memory to guide its return. Think of the frost-resistant pads pressing forward, the scent marks etched across an unseen map, the patient endurance carried through each step. These are not the spectacles of giants, but the steady work of survival written in small, deliberate acts. The wolves and wolverines remind us that life persists in many forms. Some endure by singing, others by gathering in herds, others still by vanishing into camouflage. But for these quiet predators, survival lies in persistence, in following, in caching, in marking, in refusing to quit. They do not thrive because they are the strongest, but because they are the most determined, the most willing to endure hunger, distance, and cold without faltering. If endurance can be written not in strength or speed but in persistence and patience, how might we rethink the quiet ways we endure in our own lives? In the endless white of the Arctic, herds of reindeer move steadily across the snow, their breath rising in clouds, their hooves clicking softly against frozen ground. Known as caribou in North America, these animals are more than wanderers of great distances. They are living examples of physiology refined by cold, creatures whose very bodies have become maps of adaptation. To watch them is to see the details of survival written in each breath, each glance, each step forward into the snow. The reindeer's nose, broad and complex, is more than an organ of scent. Inside, winding passages swirl the air before it reaches the lungs. This maze of folds warms the icy breath on its way in and cools it again on the way out, conserving heat and moisture that would otherwise vanish into the cold. In a place where warmth is more precious than gold, each inhalation and exhalation is balanced, each breath measured against loss. To breathe here is to recycle life itself. Their eyes also change with the seasons, shifting color in response to the polar extremes of light. In the endless brightness of summer, their eyes glow golden, tuned to protect against glare and to filter the flood of light from the midnight sun. In the long darkness of winter, they turn to a deep blue, increasing sensitivity, gathering what little light remains to pierce the shadows. This transformation is not cosmetic but functional, a quiet miracle of adaptation that allows reindeer to see in two worlds, one of blazing light, one of near total dark. The antlers rising from their heads are another story, branching crowns that mark both survival and ritual. Unlike most deer, both males and females grow them, though at different times of year. Males shed theirs after the autumn rut, their energy spent in contests of strength and dominance. Females, however, retain their antlers through the winter, using them to guard precious feeding sites beneath the snow. This difference ensures that pregnant females have the tools to defend food during the hardest months, a reminder that survival often bends in service to the next generation. Within their stomachs, another adaptation thrives. The reindeer is a ruminant, its digestion aided by a host of microbes that shift with the seasons. In summer, when grasses and herbs are abundant, the microbes process soft plants. In winter, when snow buries most vegetation, the balance shifts. Special microbes flourish, capable of breaking down lichens and woody stems, extracting nutrients from material that would starve other grazers. The reindeer's stomach is not simply its own, it is a community, changing with the seasons, aligning survival with the rhythms of the land. Each detail of the reindeer's physiology speaks of endurance. Hooves change with the year, edges sharpening in winter to cut through ice, then softening in summer to grip wet tundra. Fur, dense and hollow, traps warmth and buoyancy, insulating against both cold air and icy rivers. Even their gait shifts, efficient and steady, tuned to conserve energy over the long migrations that define their lives. They are not built for speed alone, but for distance, for continuity, for journeys that stretch across the horizon. To watch them dig through snow with their hooves, uncovering lichens hidden beneath drifts, is to see quiet persistence made visible. To imagine them swimming across wide rivers, bodies buoyed by coats filled with air, is to glimpse determination carried through water as well as land. To stand near a herd and hear the constant clicking of tendons snapping across bone as they walk, is to listen to a chorus of survival, a sound as familiar to the Arctic as wind or ice. Reindeer are bound to people as well as to the tundra. For millennia, indigenous communities have lived alongside them, relying on their meat, hides, and strength, shaping lives around their migrations. Even today, the bond persists, reindeer herding a partnership that reflects mutual dependence. These animals are not only wild wanderers but companions, bridges between the wilderness and the human world, carrying culture as much as life. Yet whether among people or roaming in wild herds, their bodies remain the same, attuned to the polar extremes, to the breath that must conserve warmth, to the eyes that must see in both sun and night, to the stomach that transforms the unyielding into sustenance. They are not just survivors, but alchemists, turning cold air into warmth, scarce food into strength, and endless miles into continuity. Think of a reindeer standing in a snowstorm, nostrils flaring as it breathes warmth back into itself. Think of its eyes glinting golden in the summer light, then glowing blue in the darkness of winter. Think of antlers sharp against the sky, a crown worn by both male and female, each serving a different purpose in the cycle of survival. Think of a stomach alive with microbes, transforming lichen into fuel for migrations that stretch beyond sight. Each image is a fragment of their design, a story written in biology as much as in movement. The reindeer embodies the truth that adaptation is not a single trait, but a symphony of adjustments, each one tuned to the harsh demands of the north. In their noses, their eyes, their antlers, their stomachs, we see survival woven into every detail. And in their long migrations, we see how those details add up to endurance across space and time. If our bodies could adapt as seamlessly as the reindeers, shifting with each season's challenge, how different might our own lives feel in the face of change? Where the Arctic coastline rises into stone, the silence of the tundra gives way to a sudden roar of life. Cliffs dark against the sea become vertical cities, crowded with thousands upon thousands of seabirds. Guillemots, arklets, and kittiwakes press onto narrow ledges, each bird claiming a space barely wide enough to stand. The cliffs tremble with sound, wings beating in constant rhythm, calls echoing against rock and water. In these colonies, life is condensed, compressed into stone shelves above the ocean's endless spread. Guillemots stand shoulder to shoulder, sleek bodies leaning forward as if poised to dive. Their wings, narrow and pointed, are not designed for effortless takeoff. Instead, they are built for another life entirely, flight underwater. Beating their wings below the surface as if they were still in the air, guillemots dive deep, chasing fish through the cold sea. This design makes landings and departures from the cliff awkward, but in the water they are transformed, swift and agile, turning limits into mastery. Auklets, smaller and social, fill crevices and ledges with constant chatter. Their colonies can stretch for miles, each bird fluttering in and out in endless exchange. To watch them is to see the cliff itself come alive, stone sprouting wings that dart in all directions. They too plunge into the sea for food, bringing back small fish and plankton to their young waiting on the ledges. Every flight is purposeful, every return a small success in the crowded rhythm of the colony. Above them, kittiwakes wheel in white arcs, their voices sharp and persistent. These gulls nest precariously on ledges so narrow they seem impossible, balancing life on stone shelves exposed to wind and wave. Each nest is built from seaweed and grass, held together with guano, a fragile platform clinging to the cliff face. Parents take turns tending the nest, flying far out to sea to gather food, then returning to feed their chicks with careful devotion. The colonies do more than sustain themselves. Guano, the waste of countless birds, coats the cliffs and seeps into the soil below. This fertilizes the tundra, enriching the ground for plants that would otherwise struggle in the thin Arctic soil. In this way, the seabird cliffs ripple influence across the land, feeding not only chicks but meadows of grass and moss, which in turn feed grazing animals. The cliffs are engines of fertility, proof that even noise and waste carry purpose in the cycles of survival. Foraging trips can stretch far into the ocean, parents flying dozens of kilometers to reach productive waters. They seek plankton fronts and schools of fish, places where currents concentrate food into abundance. Returning with beaks full, they navigate back through flocks of thousands, finding their mate and chick by call and memory alone. Each bird's voice is distinct, a thread of recognition woven into the roar of the colony. The cliffs are not chaos but community, a living order hidden beneath the noise. Life here is dangerous, balanced on edges both literal and figurative. Eggs may tumble from ledges, chicks may falter before wings are ready. Predators patrol the skies and waters, gulls and jaegers snatching young, foxes waiting at the cliff's base, even whales occasionally feeding on dense rafts of adults offshore. Yet the colony endures, year after year by sheer force of numbers. In a place where individual lives are fragile, the collective ensures survival. Thousands of birds together succeed where one alone would fail. To stand near these cliffs is to feel overwhelmed. The air is alive with wing beats, the ground streaked with guano, the sky filled with cries. Yet there is beauty in the density, in the persistence of life condensed into stone. The cliffs remind us that even in the Arctic, where silence and emptiness seem to rule, there are places where life erupts in crowded abundance, where survival is a shared act, shouted into the wind. Picture the guillemot leaping from the ledge, wings flapping awkwardly at first, before slicing gracefully through the water below. Picture the auklets bursting in clouds from the cliff, returning minutes later, with beaks brimming with fish. Picture the kittiwakes clinging to narrow nests, their calls echoing endlessly against stone. Picture the tundra beneath the cliffs, green and rich from the nutrients raining down from above. Each detail shows not isolation but interconnection, not silence but chorus. The seabird cliffs are cities without stone walls, communities built on instinct and persistence, each life precarious yet part of a greater whole. They are reminders that survival is not always quiet or solitary. Sometimes it is noisy, crowded, messy, yet still beautiful, still essential. In their density lies resilience, and in their resilience lies the continuation of the Arctic story. If survival can be so loud and crowded, filled with voices layered over one another, what does that say about the silence we seek in our own lives? Beneath the frozen ceiling of the Arctic Ocean, where the world above lies silent and white, life drifts in countless tiny forms. Zooplankton, so small they are often invisible to the naked eye, move in vast numbers below the ice. They are the engines of the Arctic food web, fragile bodies carrying the energy of the sun from plants to predators, linking the invisible to the immense. Without their drifting presence, whales, fish, and seabirds would find only emptiness. In their quiet persistence, the zooplankton remind us that the smallest lives often carry the greatest weight. Among them, copepods stand out as survivalists of astonishing design. Barely larger than grains of rice, they carry within their bodies enormous reserves of fat-rich oils called lipids. These stores are not luxuries, but lifelines, allowing copepods to endure the long polar night when photosynthesis halts and food is scarce. Sinking to deeper layers, they wait in a kind of suspended calm, living off the energy stored in their bodies. When spring returns and ice retreats, they rise again, ready to feed and be fed upon, passing their energy up the chain to fish, birds, and whales. Their movements are not random. Even in the unbroken dark of winter, copepods and other zooplankton continue diel vertical migrations, rising toward the surface by night and sinking by day. This pattern, found across oceans worldwide, persists even when the Arctic night lasts for months, suggesting that the rhythm is etched into their biology, tuned to the faintest cues of light and temperature. These migrations, measured in meters but repeated by billions of bodies, form the largest daily movement of biomass on Earth, a pulse of life that continues unseen beneath the ice. At the edge of the melting floes, when spring sunlight returns, ice algae and phytoplankton bloom in sudden abundance. These pulses of productivity cascade into feeding events. Zooplankton swarm to consume the microscopic plants, and in turn fish and seabirds rush to feed on the zooplankton. The bloom is brief, a few weeks of abundance in an otherwise sparse year, yet it fuels the Arctic ecosystem, providing the foundation on which predators far larger than the plankton depend. A bowhead whale, opening its massive mouth, filters thousands of liters of water, harvesting copepods by the millions. A guillemot dives into a plankton-rich current, its beak snapping at fish made strong by the zooplankton's energy. Krill, another key member of this drifting community, follow the retreating ice in spring. As the floes break apart, krill move in schools beneath the edge, feeding on the algae that drips from melting ice. These schools become feeding grounds for birds, seals and whales. The drifting margin of ice transformed into a line of life, stretching for miles. In this way, the retreat of ice does not signal loss but renewal, at least for a season. The movement of zooplankton ensures that energy flows outward, from ice to ocean, from microscopic plants to the largest animals on Earth. To imagine this world is to look beyond the surface silence. Picture the underside of the ice, tinged green with algae, tiny copepods rising and falling in rhythms older than memory. Picture krill drifting in schools, their translucent bodies flickering with faint light, drawn to the edge where food blooms. Picture the ocean filled with invisible currents of life, threads that connect seal pups to their mothers, whales to their centuries-long journeys, seabirds to their cliffside colonies. All of it, every life above, depends on these drifting forms below. Zooplankton are fragile, soft-bodied, carried by currents beyond their control. Yet in that fragility lies resilience. They do not resist the flow, they ride it. They do not dominate the sea, they inhabit it in vast uncountable numbers, ensuring that even if countless perish, enough remain to sustain the whole. Their strength lies not in individual survival, but in collective abundance, a strategy as effective as any tusk or claw. Their presence reveals a truth of the Arctic, that survival is not only about the visible and the grand, it is also about the small, the unseen, the countless lives that drift in silence, turning sunlight into sustenance for the giants above. To overlook them is to miss the foundation, the quiet machinery that keeps the Arctic alive. They are engines without noise, power without spectacle, patience without pause. Think of them now, drifting beneath ice while storms rage above. Think of their oil-rich bodies glowing faintly in the deep, waiting out the long night. Think of their synchronized rising and sinking, billions moving together as if choreographed by the sea itself. Think of the whales that open their mouths to swallow them, the birds that dive for the fish they nourish, the seals that thrive on those fish. Each thread of life in the Arctic begins with these drifting forms too small to see, too important to ignore. The zooplankton teach us that greatness does not always require size or strength. Sometimes it is persistence, quiet repetition, and sheer numbers that matter most. They remind us that what is unseen may still shape the entire world above. In their drifting patience, they embody the hidden engines of survival, silent yet unstoppable, fragile yet essential. If the smallest lives can carry entire ecosystems on their backs, how much of our own survival rests on things we cannot see or even notice? Deep in the cold waters where ice drifts overhead and temperatures plunge near freezing, fish live in a realm that would kill most others. These are the ice fish, survivors of extremes, their bodies tuned to endure what seems unendurable. They move slowly, quietly, their very blood altered to resist freezing, their lives paced to match the lethargic rhythm of the polar sea. In their stillness lies a story of adaptation, a lesson in how life can rewrite itself to persist against impossible odds. The most remarkable secret of the ice fish lies in their blood. While most animals would succumb to ice crystals forming within, these fish carry antifreeze proteins that bind to crystals before they can grow, stopping the chain reaction that would otherwise destroy cells. This adaptation is invisible yet profound, a molecular shield that allows them to swim where others would freeze solid. Their very veins carry resilience, each heartbeat a triumph over conditions that should not allow life. Their hearts beat slowly, conserving oxygen in the cold depths. Where warmer seas quicken the pulse of fish, here the opposite is true. The cold slows everything, metabolism, digestion, even growth. But rather than perish in such lethargy, ice fish thrive in it, stretching lives longer, reducing the energy required to endure. To observe them is to see patience embodied in muscle and blood, each moment extended, each movement minimal, conserving what little the environment provides. Dark livers within their bodies hold reserves of fat, a storehouse for long fasting periods when food is scarce. The liver acts as both pantry and shield, keeping them nourished through stretches of deprivation. These reserves also add buoyancy, helping them hover quietly in the water column without wasting effort on constant motion. In a world where every calorie counts, such economy makes the difference between life and disappearance. Their hunting is equally efficient. Many ice fish rely on ambush rather than pursuit, lurking near the sea floor or beneath ice, waiting for prey to approach. When opportunity comes, their strike is quick, but until then they remain nearly motionless, blending with the dim surroundings. This strategy saves energy, sparing them the constant chase of more restless hunters. They wait, silent and still, until the moment demands action. Patience here is not a luxury, but the heart of survival. Some species of ice fish go further still, lacking hemoglobin entirely, their blood clear instead of red. Oxygen dissolves directly into plasma, carried slowly through their tissues. While this makes them sluggish compared to other fish, it also reduces the demands of maintaining red blood cells, a trade-off that fits perfectly with their cold, slow environment. To imagine such blood coursing silently through veins is to see adaptation at its most radical, proof that even the core of life, the color of blood itself, can be reshaped by necessity. Their world is one of quiet endurance. Beneath the ice there are no coral reefs, no kelp forests, only the shifting interplay of cold, dark water and drifting food. Plankton falls like snow, small fish dart briefly, predators pass slowly through the gloom. Ice fish live within this muted theater, their adaptations tuning them to a place where change is slow and extremes are constant. They do not rush, because the environment does not reward rushing. They do not shine, because brightness would betray them. They endure, quietly, year after year. Think of a fish suspended beneath the ice, its clear blood carrying oxygen with patient efficiency. Think of its heart beating slowly, each contraction deliberate, unhurried. Think of its liver, heavy with fat, sustaining it through long stretches when prey does not come. Think of its body remaining still until the exact moment to strike, a life lived in balance between hunger and conservation. Each detail reveals how adaptation can transform vulnerability into mastery. These fish remind us that survival does not always mean speed or ferocity. Sometimes it means slowing down, accepting the environment's rhythm, living within its limitations rather than fighting against them. The antifreeze in their blood, the slow pulse of their hearts, the fat stored in their livers, each is a whisper of resilience, a quiet refusal to yield. Above them whales roam, seals dive, birds circle, all depending on speed, motion and noise. But in the depths, the ice fish keep to their silence. They do not chase the world, they let it drift past. They show that even in the harshest environment, life finds a way by rewriting itself, by bending its very chemistry to match the demands of the sea. If life can change even the color of its blood to endure, how much within us could be reshaped if we truly learn to live at the pace of our own environment? When winter deepens in the Arctic, the sun sinks below the horizon and does not rise again for weeks or even months. This is the polar night, a season when daylight disappears and the world is cloaked in long twilight and darkness. To us, it may seem like a void, a time when life would retreat or vanish. Yet beneath the cover of this darkness, the Arctic is alive with senses beyond sight, creatures navigating a world lit by other signals, flickers, vibrations, sounds, making survival possible even when the sun is gone. In the depths of the water, light takes on strange forms. Tiny organisms release bioluminescence, flashes of green and blue that punctuate the blackness. Each spark is brief, but together they paint the sea with quiet constellations. Some signals lure prey closer, others warn predators away. To watch these flickers is to see the night ocean alive with stars that drift instead of burn. In a place where the sun has abandoned the horizon, life invents its own light, however faint. Seals, moving through this dark water, rely not on sight but on touch. Their whiskers, long and sensitive, read vibrations in the water, detecting the movement of fish and currents. Even the faintest ripple tells a story, a fish darting, a predator passing, ice shifting overhead. These whiskers are maps in the dark, guides more reliable than eyes when the sea is ink black. A hunting seal sweeps its head gently from side to side, whiskers quivering, finding prey by the language of water alone. On land and ice, the snowy owl adjusts its senses to the night. Its hearing becomes as important as its sight, detecting the faint rustle of prey beneath snow. Sound contrasts, the scrape of a vole moving, the break of snow crust under a small body, draw the owl's strike. In the silence of polar night, every sound becomes a signal, amplified by the vast openness of the tundra. Darkness here does not mean emptiness, only a different way of perceiving. Above it all, the sky glows with auroras. the northern lights bending across the horizon. Green, violet, and crimson curtains shimmer and shift, silent waves of charged particles colliding with the atmosphere. They illuminate the night without warming it, their beauty a gift without utility. Yet to creatures below, they may alter brightness subtly, creating fleeting shifts in shadow and glow. To us, the aurora is wonder. To the animals of the Arctic, it is simply another variable in the endless adjustments of survival. For those who endure the polar night, adaptation is not only physical but sensory. The fox listens intently for the squeak of prey beneath snow. Whales use clicks and calls to find one another in waters where light cannot reach. Even humans, guided by the stars and the feel of the land, have long navigated the Arctic in darkness, proving that night is not a void but a realm filled with signals waiting to be read. The polar night teaches patience. Days and weeks pass without sunrise, the body leaning into rhythms other than light. Life does not stop but slows, conserving energy, stretching sustenance, waiting for the sun's eventual return. And in the waiting, senses deepen, whiskers sharpen, ears attune, voices echo farther. Where sight falters, other ways of knowing rise. Imagine standing on the ice at noon, yet beneath a sky as dark as midnight. Above, the aurora flows silently. Around you, the snow crunches under your boots, sound carrying farther than you expect. Beneath the ice, a seal moves, whiskers twitching as it reads the water. In the distance, a fox tilts its head, listening for movement below. And far offshore, whales call into the black, their voices painting the sea with echoes. This is the polar night, not emptiness, but another kind of fullness, a world seen through other senses. The long darkness can seem unsettling, but it also carries calm. Without the rush of constant daylight, time feels slower, measured in breaths, in sounds, in faint glimmers of light. The creatures of the Arctic do not fear this night. They have lived with it for millennia, reshaping their lives around its rhythm, finding ways to see without seeing. For them, the night is not absence but presence, a season as rich as summer, only quieter, slower, darker. The polar night reminds us that perception is not limited to light. It whispers that survival can emerge from listening, from touch, from patience in darkness. It shows us that what feels like absence may be another form of presence, that what feels like silence may be filled with voices we have not yet learned to hear. If the world remains alive and full even in the absence of light, what else might we be missing when we trust only what our eyes can see? When the Arctic summer arrives, it comes suddenly, as if the land itself exhales. Ice and snow retreat, rivers break free, and the tundra softens into wet ground glistening under endless sunlight. For a brief season, the frozen silence gives way to sound and movement. Water pools across the land, forming wetlands where once there was only frost. Insects rise in swarms, filling the air with their hum, and migratory birds descend from every direction, drawn to this fleeting abundance. The Arctic summer is short, but it is a season of crowded life, packed into weeks as if the land must hurry before winter's return. The wetlands are the heart of this transformation. Shallow ponds stretch across the tundra, fed by meltwater and rainfall, their surfaces reflecting a sun that never sets. In these waters, insects hatch in numbers that defy imagination. Mosquitoes and midges emerge by the millions, filling the air with dense clouds that swirl above sedges and grasses. To humans, they may seem unbearable, a storm of wings and bites, but to birds they are sustenance, a feast that fuels nesting and growth. For the briefest window, the Arctic becomes one of the most insect-rich regions on Earth. Shorebirds arrive in flocks, their journeys from distant continents ending here, on the damp margins of Arctic ponds. Sandpipers, plovers, and phalaropes feed tirelessly, probing the mud for larvae, picking insects from the air. Their calls echo across the wetlands, each species weaving its own thread into the chorus of summer. Many have traveled thousands of kilometers, crossing oceans and deserts, only to nest in this fragile band of warmth. They have timed their migrations with precision, arriving just as the insect swarms rise, ensuring their chicks can be fed on abundance before the season closes again. Ducks and geese gather as well, filling ponds with movement. Eiders float in groups, their heads dipping rhythmically as they feed. Geese graze on the lush grasses that surge upward with the thaw, their goslings trailing behind in awkward lines. The constant daylight allows endless feeding. There is no need for rest when the sun refuses to set. Chicks grow quickly, bodies racing to maturity before the first chill of autumn arrives. The wetlands become nurseries, each pool alive with parents guarding their young, each margin crowded with nests. The insects themselves are more than food. They are engineers of the landscape. Their emergence stirs nutrients into motion, breaking down organic matter, fertilizing water and soil. They are small, fragile, ephemeral, yet without them the summer boom would falter. The Arctic's vast migrations, the millions of birds that cross hemispheres to nest here, all depend on these hatches. The hum of wings is not annoyance but foundation, the quiet machinery that powers life during the short, bright season. Predators, too, adjust to the abundance. Arctic foxes patrol the wetlands, their keen eyes watching for unattended chicks or eggs. Jaguars swoop through, agile hunters that rob other birds as much as they hunt themselves. Even owls shift their focus, drawn to the open ground where prey is now plentiful. Yet the balance holds, for the sheer scale of life overwhelms the losses. With so many insects, so many chicks, the wetlands can feed predator and prey alike without collapse. The endless sun changes behavior for all who live here. Birds call at hours that would normally be night, their songs continuous, as if time has lost its boundaries. Plants stretch rapidly, leaves unfurling almost overnight, blossoms opening and closing in cycles too fast to seem real. Calves and chicks grow in weeks, what might take months elsewhere, every heartbeat hurrying to keep pace with the season. To live in Arctic summer is to live accelerated, to accept that life must be condensed into a fraction of the year. Picture it now, the surface of a tundra pond, trembling with the wings of mosquitoes rising in clouds. A phalarope spins on the water, stirring insects with its circular dance. A line of goslings follows their mother across wet grass, pecking at swarms that hover above. A fox trots along the bank, ears pricked, vanishing into tall sedges with a stolen egg. Above, the sun hangs low but never dips, its light stretched endlessly across a sky that refuses to darken. The Arctic is alive, not in silence, but in frantic abundance, each creature seizing its brief chance to thrive. The summer thaw is fleeting. Already as weeks pass, nights begin to return, first as faint shadows, then as hours of darkness. The insects dwindle, the wetlands dry, and the birds gather in restless flocks preparing for journeys south. Soon the tundra will empty again, silence returning as snow begins to fall. But for now, the land is full, as if it were saving all its life for this short, impossible moment. The wetlands, insects and birds remind us that even in the harshest climates, abundance can come suddenly, unexpectedly, filling the world with more life than seems possible. They show us that cycles of scarcity and plenty are natural, that silence and song can alternate, each making the other more vivid. In their brief, crowded season, we glimpse resilience in its most exuberant form. If life can bloom so suddenly and fully in only a few short weeks, what possibilities might lie hidden in our own seasons of waiting for the right moment to burst into abundance? Small in stature yet vast in resilience, the Arctic fox endures where few mammals can. Its body is shaped by the cold, its behavior tuned to the shifting cycles of plenty and scarcity. In the long winters, when the tundra is locked in silence and snow buries the ground, it survives through cunning and patience. In the brief summers, when birds and rodents appear in abundance, it thrives in bursts of energy. The fox is adaptability made flesh, a creature that changes with the land, wearing survival as lightly as its shifting coat. The most striking feature of the Arctic fox is its fur, dense and transformative. In summer it turns a brown or grey mottled shade, blending with rock and tundra moss. In winter it shifts to pure white, as thick as frost itself, rendering the animal nearly invisible on the snow. This camouflage is not only for hunting, but for protection, keeping the fox unseen by larger predators like wolves. The seasonal change is seamless, the body reshaping itself to mirror the world around it. To watch an Arctic fox vanish into the snow is to see invisibility performed without effort. Its paws are equally adapted, furred so thickly that they serve as natural boots. The fox can cross ice and snow without freezing, each step cushioned against the cold. Its compact body minimizes surface area, conserving heat, while its rounded muzzle and short ears reduce exposure to the wind. Even its tail serves as insulation, wrapped around its body like a blanket when it curls to sleep. Every part of its design is a small defense, together forming an armor of warmth against the Arctic's long winter. But warmth is only part of survival. Food is scarce for much of the year, and the fox must turn to ingenuity. In winter, it trails polar bears across the ice, scavenging scraps from their kills. It listens beneath snow for lemmings, pouncing high and breaking through the crust with precision. It caches food when abundance allows, burying small stores to recover later when the land falls silent again. Each act is calculated, each adaptation a way of stretching resources across the void of winter. Summer brings another rhythm. The tundra fills with bird colonies, and the foxes take advantage of eggs and chicks in astonishing numbers. Along seabird cliffs they patrol the edges, darting in to snatch prey. In wetlands they raid nests, feeding not only themselves but their growing litters. A single den may house a dozen pups, the largest litters of any wild carnivore. Parents work tirelessly, carrying food back again and again, transforming the summer's abundance into the next generation. The dens themselves are marvels of continuity. Some burrows have been used for centuries, passed down through generations of foxes. Carved into well-drained ridges or slopes, they hold dozens of entrances, complex networks that provide shelter from wind and predators. Within these tunnels, pups are raised in warmth, hidden from the harshness above. To step into an Arctic fox den is to step into history, a lineage of survival inscribed into the very soil. The fox's adaptability extends beyond its body and den to its very diet. Few animals can match its range of foods, from lemmings and fish to berries and carrion, from seal scraps to bird eggs. It consumes whatever the land offers. It can survive famine by scavenging, abundance by feasting, and every stage in between by flexibility. Where others perish when their prey dwindles, the fox shifts its focus, adjusting as easily as its coat changes color. It is also a traveler. Arctic foxes have been tracked wandering thousands of kilometers across sea ice, moving between continents in search of food. One young fox traveled from Norway to Canada in less than 3 months, crossing glaciers and frozen seas with a persistence that seems impossible for such a small body. Their journeys show not only endurance but a willingness to expand beyond boundaries, to follow survival wherever it leads. Think of the fox now, curled into a snowbank, tail wrapped over nose, warmth sealed within its own fur. Think of it leaping high in winter, breaking through snow to catch a hidden lemming. Think of it carrying a chick back to its den, pups rushing to greet it at the tunnel entrance. Think of it wandering across sea ice, paws steady, body light pressing forward day after day across an endless white horizon. Each image is a portrait of adaptability, of a creature that endures not by resisting change, but by embracing it. The Arctic fox is a reminder that resilience is not stubbornness. It is flexibility, the willingness to alter shape, color, and habit as the world shifts. Its coat, its diet, its journeys, all show a life that bends without breaking. In its quiet endurance, it teaches us that to survive is not always to fight the cold, but to move with it, to shift alongside it, to accept and adapt. If survival depends less on resisting change and more on adapting to it, how might our own lives open if we learn to shift as easily as the Arctic fox does with the seasons? In the Arctic's frozen expanse, where snow drifts form mountains and the sea is roofed by shifting ice, the story of survival begins anew each spring in the lives of polar bear cubs. Small, blind at birth, and nestled deep within snow dens, these cubs emerge into a world that is both harsh and beautiful, a world they must learn quickly if they are to endure. Their first steps onto the ice are hesitant, guided by a mother whose patience and strength are their only defense against a landscape that tests every breath. A polar bear mother gives birth in the heart of winter, inside a den carved into snowbanks or earth. There, in the darkness, 1 to 3 cubs are born, each no larger than a guinea pig, pink and fragile, their fur still sparse. For months they remain in the warmth of the den, nourished by rich milk, gaining weight until their coats thicken and their eyes open. In those first hidden weeks, the world outside rages with blizzards and endless night, but inside, life stirs quietly, preparing for its first encounter with the Arctic. When spring light returns, the family emerges. The cubs, now furred and stronger, take their first steps onto snow. Every movement is a lesson: how to walk across crust without sinking, how to use small claws for grip, how to stay close when the wind howls. The mother leads with deliberate calm, pausing often so the cubs can keep up. Her watchfulness is unbroken. Every moment is both teaching and protection. For the cubs, learning the ice is not play but survival, an apprenticeship written in every stumble and recovery. Food is the central lesson. The mother has fasted through her time in the den, surviving on stored fat, and now she must hunt seals to regain her strength and feed her cubs. She guides them to breathing holes, where they learn the patience of stillness, waiting for hours until a seal surfaces. They watch her movements, the tilt of her head, the sudden strike when opportunity appears. Though they will not master these skills for years, the foundation is laid in these first observations. Learning to hunt in the Arctic is not instinct alone, it is practice, repetition, and the slow shaping of behavior across seasons. The cubs' play reflects this preparation. Wrestling with siblings, they test strength and coordination. Pouncing in the snow, they mimic the strikes they will one day use against seals. Even chasing their mother's tail or sliding down drifts is more than amusement. It builds the muscles and reflexes they will depend on. Play is practice disguised as joy, a rehearsal for the challenges that await when they must hunt on their own. Protection remains constant. Predators are rare for polar bear cubs, but hunger and cold are threats as real as any rival. The mother shelters them in storms, pressing her massive body around them, her warmth creating a living den against the wind. She keeps them away from older males, who sometimes pose danger to young cubs. Her vigilance is ceaseless, for the survival of her lineage rests on keeping the cubs alive until they are strong enough to face the ice themselves. Travel is another lesson, for polar bears are wanderers. The mother may lead her cubs across miles of drifting ice in search of hunting grounds. The cubs learn to climb ridges, leap small leads of water, and recognize the scent of seal on the wind. Their paws, broad and furred, spread their weight like snowshoes, but still they stumble, still they tire. Each journey is endurance training, shaping them into travelers capable of covering the vast distances that define polar bear life. Some cubs do not survive. The Arctic spares little, and starvation, accidents, or separation can claim the young. Yet those who endure carry with them the lessons of their first seasons: how to walk, how to wait, how to stay close to the mother's shadow. By the time they reach independence, at about 2 years old, they have learned enough to face the ice alone, though each step into solitude is still uncertain. Their survival is not guaranteed, but without the mother's early guidance, it would be impossible. Picture a cub sliding clumsily down a drift, then scrambling back up, paws flailing yet determined. Picture another pressing into its mother's side during a storm, eyes closed, warmth soaking into its small body. Picture the moment when a mother strikes at a seal, and her cubs, wide-eyed, watch as survival is demonstrated in a single swift motion. Picture the endless marches across drifting floes, cubs trailing, stumbling, but rising again, each mile etching knowledge into their growing bodies. These are the lessons of the ice, learned not in classrooms, but in breath and step and hunger. The polar bear cub embodies the fragility of beginnings, but also the possibility of endurance. Its first seasons are precarious, balanced on the mother's strength and the cub's ability to learn quickly. Yet in its play, its mimicry, its persistence, we see resilience taking shape. The Arctic may be harsh, but it is also a teacher, shaping each new generation through patience and trial. The cubs do not merely survive, they learn to belong to the ice, to walk where it shifts, to wait where it tests patience, to endure where it challenges life itself. If survival is something we must be taught from the beginning, what lessons are we passing down, and how might they shape the lives that follow us into their own uncertain landscapes? The Arctic has always been a place of contrasts, where abundance and scarcity trade places with the seasons, where silence and sound alternate across months of darkness and light. To walk through its stories of bears and foxes, of whales and fish, of birds and insects, is to see survival practiced in countless forms. Each life we have followed carries its own strategy. Some endure through patience, others through speed, others still through camouflage or cooperation. Together they form a mosaic of resilience, a living mirror of what it means to change in order to survive. The land itself shifts constantly. Ice grows and retreats, snow buries and then releases the tundra, rivers freeze and thaw. The animals we have met are not fixed against these changes. They are shaped by them, moving with the rhythm rather than against it. The caribou travels endlessly across plains, never staying still because the land does not. The bowhead whale drifts patiently through centuries, breathing through ice that comes and goes. The Arctic fox changes color, coat and behavior with each turn of the year. All of them reveal a truth. Resilience is not a matter of resisting change, but of embodying it. The Arctic also teaches balance. The snowy owl depends on lemmings, and the lemmings depend on the grasses beneath the snow. Wolves thin the herds, and by doing so keep them strong. Seals open breathing holes, and those openings sustain bears, foxes and scavengers alike. Nothing here is separate. Every life, even the smallest, ripples outward into the whole. To remove one thread would unravel the fabric. To overlook the tiny zooplankton beneath the ice would be to miss the energy that carries whales, birds, and fish through their seasons. In the Arctic, nothing exists alone. This place also reflects time in unusual ways. In the bowhead whale, we saw centuries folded into one body. In the summer wetlands, we saw entire lifetimes compressed into a few weeks of feeding and breeding. The Arctic stretches and compresses time, reminding us that survival can be measured in decades or in days, depending on how the land demands it. To live here is to accept that time is not uniform, that sometimes one must wait for generations, while other times one must hurry before the sun sets again. There is beauty here, not in spite of the harshness but because of it. The aurora shimmering above a frozen bay, the song of belugas echoing in shallow rivers, the silent leap of a fox breaking through snow to catch a hidden mouse. These are not luxuries, but expressions of life enduring in its own quiet ways. To see them is to be reminded that beauty does not require comfort, that it often arises in places where survival is the hardest. Yet the Arctic is also fragile, its balance delicate. The ice that gives shape to so many lives is not permanent. It shifts with winds, with currents, with changes beyond its own control. The creatures that rely on it, bears hunting seals, walruses hauling out, narwhals surfacing in leads, reveal how tightly survival is bound to something so changeable. The Arctic mirrors change not only in its animals, but in itself, reminding us that the world we know is always in motion, always adjusting, always fragile. Picture the Arctic now, as one vast whole. Caribou crossing plains in endless lines, musk oxen forming circles in the snow, seals surfacing in small holes, steam rising into frozen air, walruses piled on ice floes, tusks gleaming, narwhals lifting spiraled tusks from the water, belugas singing in white rivers, bowhead whales breathing through broken ice, snowy owls gliding silently above lemming tunnels, hares crouched like snowdrifts, wolves trailing herds, wolverines caching food, reindeer glowing with eyes that change color between seasons, seabird cliffs erupting with sound, plankton drifting in the dark, icefish swimming with clear blood, auroras shifting overhead, wetlands bursting with insects, foxes trotting tirelessly across the tundra, bear cubs stumbling on new paws, each image a piece of the whole, each detail a part of the mirror. The Arctic shows us ourselves. It reflects our own need for balance, our own dependence on unseen threads, our own resilience through change. We too are shaped by cycles of abundance and scarcity, by moments of darkness and light. We too must learn to adapt, to endure, to carry lessons from one generation to the next. To look at the Arctic is to be reminded that survival is not conquest but continuity, not isolation but connection, not rigidity but adaptability. And as we leave this journey, we return to the quiet question we asked in the beginning. If change is constant, if time is fragile, if survival always depends on threads we cannot see, then who are we, really, when we rush through our days forgetting the cycles that sustain us? The Arctic does not answer directly, it only shows, in whales that live for centuries, in foxes that change with the snow, in fish whose very blood shifts to match the sea, in owls that depend on mice, and mice that depend on grass, and grass that depends on sunlight that may vanish for months. The answer is not in words but in patterns. We are part of the same fabric, bound by the same cycles, shaped by the same necessity to endure and to change. And now, as we leave the Arctic, the question lingers. If change is constant, who are we when we resist it? The polar bear adapts to shifting ice, the fox to shifting seasons, the whale to centuries of darkness and light. Perhaps our strength too lies not in resisting, but in adjusting, in listening, in blending with the rhythms around us. Tonight, may your breath slow like the whale's, may your rest be deep as the fox's den, and may you wake tomorrow a little wiser, carrying the Arctic's lessons in your own quiet endurance. Close your eyes and let sleep come.